and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm out just running a couple of errands after work. My partner could have picked the bits and pieces up on his way home, but I've been cooped up doing marking all day, so I quite fancied a little bit of trip out. So, going to enjoy this glorious evening sunshine with a quick trip to pick up some things I forgot in the weekly shop this week. My quirk of classic car ownership for you today is how owning a classic car can get you talking to the most interesting people at the most unpredictable times. We recently went to a little kind of gathering of some of Jamie's workmates, and some of them remembering the car from when it used to drop Jamie off at work were quite pleased to see it back again and to have a little bit of a chat with me about it. So that was really nice. I wasn't expecting that. Today we'd have a little bit of a chat about something a little bit different. I've recently been thinking, having got kind of 2 years into my classic car ownership and 1 year nearly into doing the podcast, about kind of what future goals I've got for kind of my time with a classic car, and what I'm hoping to kind of get out of the rest of the time that we're allowed classic cars. Around kind of quite early on in the podcast last year, back in series 1, I did do a little kind of 10 dream drives, and based off of that, I think I'd like to kind of share with you guys today the 10 kind of bucket list items that I've got of what I would kind of, even in a quite a pie in the sky scenario, like to maybe one day do. So they do vary from kind of quite achievable to perhaps quite a bit more challenging for me. So, or perhaps even impossible, we'll have to see. But if you don't put these things out there, you never know. So we're gonna go through some of those today, and I'm really interested to hear kind of what your kind of bucket list items are, or bucket list drives are, in the kind of comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or in some kind of messages and things on Instagram. That'd be really nice to hear from you guys. Without further ado, let's get started on my kind of 10 bucket list items. Now, I've always said that the Brooklands Museum is one of my favourite museums of classic cars. I've only been there the once. However, I kind of love the history and the fact that so many of the female aspirational early racing drivers were based and working from Brooklands. So I love that side of history. So I would, having only been there once, quite a while back, love to go there in my own classic car one day, and a kind of bit more of a pie in the sky aspect of it would be to hopefully take one of my cars up the embankment. I know it's not something that they readily do that often these days, so it would be kind of quite a special occasion to be able to do that. But it would be great to get a classic car, perhaps Peggy, to the Brooklands site, and at least on a little bit of the old race course. Another quite achievable one, hopefully, would be to one day take a classic car abroad on holiday. I know that there's lots of options for this, so it's certainly something that I'd be looking forward to do, and it's definitely quite achievable. It could be something that we do in Peggy. She's certainly got the potential for it. But my third option of kind of dream achievements with the classic cars is to potentially take my parents' Le Mans or another Singer Le Mans to Le Mans in France. So that could kind of all tie in there. It would be quite a challenge, quite a long trip, I imagine, but definitely speaks of adventure to me. And I'd love to be able to take a single Le Mans to Le Mans in France one day. Keeping on the theme of singers, I would love to one day be reunited with the singer Vogue that I came home from hospital when I was born in. If you've ever spoken to me in person or had a look on any of my social medias, the car does crop up a little bit in a few posts because I am actively searching it. The car is out there, it's MOT, it's taxed even, and quite recently had a new V5, but we are struggling to kind of get further than about 2014 in terms of contacting previous owners. I'd love to be kind of reunited with the car and perhaps hopefully have a little drive with it, if nothing else, especially as I've managed to track down a copy of the auto car from when that Vogue was released. And it's an automatic, much like the one that was tested in the auto car article. And so it would be good to kind of recreate that auto car article as a way of really truly testing out that car and getting to kind of know it again after so many years. But like I said, the car's still out there. If you ever at shows and manage to spot a lovely silver Singer Vogue Arrow series with the number plate AGO 898G, then please catch a picture of it, try and speak to the owner and let them know about me, because I would love to catch up with the car, tell the owner some of the really fascinating stories that I know about it from my parents' ownership and even a little bit afterwards, because I've managed to pick up quite a lot of information whilst I've been hunting it down. So that would be a really, really good thing to do. And I don't think it's impossible. It's just making sure that there's enough eyes out there spotting it whenever it does crop up at a local event or something. I've done all of the usual things like contact the clubs and all the people that I've seen take photos of it online, and it's just not cropped up yet, unfortunately. But I have got my fingers crossed that we see it sometime soon. I've also kind of started thinking about putting my English and history side of my undergraduate degree to use, as I've quite recently found that there's been a few occasions where something called a thought or an understanding or kind of a process that I've gone through as a classic car owner has been far better expressed in writing, and I found that it would be quite interesting, I think, to hold a column in a classic car magazine for a short period of time to kind of share these sorts of things. I think that I could offer quite an interesting perspective, and I've also been able to recently write a few bits and pieces about kind of my understanding of policy from my current role and how that relates to the classic car world. So I've managed to kind of write what I think are quite a few interesting pieces, but not really had anything that I could do with them. So I'd love to get kind of a bit more involved with the journalistic side, because anyone who's a Morris Minor Owners Club subscriber and has received the Minor Matters knows that I do quite a bit of writing for that as it stands, and I can't really keep putting too much in there because they'll get overwhelmed with just me writing too many pieces. But it's something that I think I'd really enjoy and would love to kind of get more involved with. I mentioned at the top of the episode the podcast about my 10 dream drives. So obviously my a bucket list item would be to drive some of those 10 dream drives. I'm not really any further on with them, but I got quite close recently actually, but unfortunately that fell through. I've got some other offers that are waiting, but it's just having the time and ability to kind of get to where I want to be able to take those cars out. So I'm fingers crossed on some of those, but could be a long-term goal for some of them. Another thing that I've been actively working on recently is filling up Peggy's adventure picnic blanket. If you don't know, Peggy has a picnic blanket that I've steadily been filling up in the style of a Girl Guide camp blanket with patches of all the places that I've taken her. We're about halfway now, and I think it'd be a really nice achievement and hopefully something that's doable to fill up that blanket. Really maybe within the next 2 years, given that it's taken us 2 years to get that far. I think that's probably quite a doable thing, and would be really nice achievement for owning her and getting her to so many places. So we're now up to number 8 of the bucket list items, and number 8 relates to a movie. Grew up watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Genevieve, and for the longest time I believed that the London to Brighton run was directly inspired by the film Genevieve, which isn't entirely true, but as a result of that I had a huge interest in the London to Brighton run, and so I would love to take a car on one of the London to Brighton runs that they do. I think it's just one of those things that's really nice to say you've done, which I'm a big fan of doing, and would be quite nice to kind of recreate some of that route from that film. And a big shout out to my dad, whose favourite film it is, and that's the reason why we watched it so much. Would I recommend you watch it? Probably not, but it's an interesting film and got quite an interesting story behind it as well. My dad tells me anyway, from some of the books that he's been reading about it recently. Number 9 on the list falls to taking a classic American car for a tour around part of America. I've always loved the look and style of some of those big American boats, but I don't think that they're too well suited to some of our windy UK roads, so I don't think I'd want to own one and drive one regularly round here, but I would love to do a big trip to America sometime, and as part of that hire a car for a few days, and me and my partner go driving around some of the beautiful big open roads that you find in America, and enjoy a car in the setting that it was designed to, whilst we take in some of America. And that really brings us to number 10 on the bucket list, and this one's quite a big one. Definitely not impossible, but it's probably going to need a bit more practice at organising events. But I'm really jealous of all the stories my parents have from taking part in things such as the Norwich Union Rally, and one that they kind of moved between 3 cathedrals over the course of a weekend, following kind of tulip maps and other cars that were taking part. And so I'd love to one day be able to organise something like that takes part over a long weekend or something for at least a small group of friends, and we all get kind of tulip maps and carry out across a big kind of achievement with something really rewarding at the end, I think. I struggle to find kind of anything too similar to that today, which is a real shame, because I think it could be really fun. If you know of anything similar to that, please let me know, because I'd love to have a go at partaking in a few of these sorts of things before I had a go at running my own sort of one for a group of friends at some point. But yeah, that brings us quite neatly to the end of my 10 bucket list items. There's loads of other stuff that I'd love to do with classic cars, but I think that makes quite a succinct and broad-reaching list for me to try and tackle in the upcoming years. Like I said, I'd love to hear from you about what your kind of goals and aspirations are with classic cars, and if you've got any ideas of things that you think I might enjoy adding to my own list, that would be great to hear as well. Thank you very much for listening. Please make sure that you're kind of following or subscribed depending on where you get hold of your podcast. But in the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.